let's focus on their functions. We begin with the Leydig cells, also called interstitial cells. The Leydig cells secrete testosterone. The Sertoli cells support sperm development, or what is referred to as spermatogenesis. The smooth muscle surrounding these Sertoli cells allows for peristalsis. This process is important as it will propel sperm through the seminiferous tubules. Well, that's all fine and dandy that the Sertoli cells produce the sperm, but how do the sperm get out of the seminiferous tubules and out of the testes? This is our next goal. So here are the sperm in the seminiferous tubules. The sperm has been produced by the Sertoli cells and released into the lumen of the seminiferous tubule. Those sperm then travel through this little region here called the rete, testes, and into the efferent ductules. This is the point at which the sperm exit the testes. From the efferent ductules, the sperm enter the epididymis and will ultimately make their way to the vas deferens. So that is the pathway the sperm are taking to get out of the testes. What propelled the sperm through all those structures? Peristalsis. Now the sperm are in the vas deferens, right? The vas deferens connects with the seminal vesicles to form the ejaculatory duct. At this point, the sperm is mixed with fluid that came from the seminal vesicles. The ejaculatory duct penetrates through the prostate gland to join the urethra. As such, the sperm wind up in the urethra, which receives substances from the bulbourethral glands. Thus, both urine and sperm are in the urethra. So that was just the pathway that sperm take from the seminiferous tubules to the urethra. Now, let's look more closely at the accessory glands I mentioned earlier.
Ovaries, fallopian tubes, and mammary glands. The external genital organs of the female collectively are called the vulva. They consist of the labia majora and labia minora, clitoris, opening of the urethra, and the opening of the vagina. The main functions involving the vulva are urination, sexual behavior, menstruation, and childbirth. The vagina is a muscular tube leading from outside of the body in towards the uterus. This is where semen from the male is deposited into the woman's body during sexual intercourse. The cervix joins with the vagina. Approximately half of the cervix is visible. The other half extends above the vagina beyond view. The uterus, also called the womb, is the major female reproductive organ. The uterus opens into the vagina via the cervix at one end and the fallopian tubes at the other end. Layers of smooth muscle, called myometrium, make up the structure of the uterus. The function of the uterus in reproduction is to accept a fertilized egg or ovum, which becomes implanted in the uterine lining or endometrium. The fallopian tubes connect the uterus to the ovaries where eggs, or ova, are produced. The ovaries also produce powerful hormones, principally estrogen and progesterone, which play an important role in the reproductive cycle, as we shall see. At birth, each ovary contains roughly 500,000 ovarian follicles, also called Graafian follicles. These follicles are the immature form of the ovum. Beginning at puberty, the ovaries normally allow one ova to mature every 28 to 30 days. This process is called the menstrual cycle. In the first half of the menstrual cycle, levels of estrogen rise and make the lining of the uterus, the endometrium, grow and thicken. At about day 14, one follicle breaks open to release its egg cell in a process known as ovulation. Smooth muscle lining the fallopian tube transports the egg by peristaltic contractions to the uterus, and progesterone levels rise and help prepare the uterine lining for pregnancy. This trip can take hours or days. If the egg becomes fertilized by a sperm cell and attaches itself to the uterine lining, the woman becomes pregnant. If the egg is not fertilized, it either dissolves or is absorbed into the body. If pregnancy does not occur, estrogen and progesterone levels drop, and the thickened lining of the uterus is shed during the menstrual period. During sexual intercourse, about 4 milliliters of semen, containing as many as 400 million sperm cells, are deposited in the female's vagina. Most of these sperm will die within 48 hours. If fertilization takes place, the sperm usually meet the ovum in the fallopian tube, requiring the sperm cells to swim from the upper vagina through the cervix and across the length of the uterus before reaching the fallopian tube, a considerable distance compared to the size of the sperm cell. Once the ovum fuses with a single sperm cell, its cell membrane changes, preventing fusion with other sperm. This process ultimately leads to the formation of a cell called a zygote, the union of an ova and a sperm.
which surround the pituitary gland. This stimulates the cells of the pituitary gland to secrete follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH, which travels through the bloodstream to reach the ovaries, where it stimulates the development of ovarian follicles. Each of the developing follicles consists of an immature egg, a number of cells which secrete estrogen, and fluid. Most of these developing follicles degenerate by day 7, leaving only a single dominant follicle to grow, nourishing the developing egg inside it. FSH helps the egg to mature in preparation for its release during ovulation, while the estrogen secreted by the developing follicles helps in the regeneration of the endometrial lining of the uterus. Around day 12, leads a surge of estrogen into the bloodstream. Which reach the hypothalamus, resulting in the increased secretion of GnRH and stimulating the production of luteinizing hormone or LH by the pituitary gland. This flooding of LH into the bloodstream causes the follicle to bulge, acting as a trigger for the rupture of the follicle and ovulation around the middle of the cycle. Immediately after its release, the egg is picked up by suction into the fimbriated opening of the outer end of the fallopian tube. From here, it takes about 5 to 6 days to travel through the fallopian tube where fertilization occurs, before the fertilized egg gets lodged in the wall of the uterine cavity. If fertilization of the egg fails to occur within 12 to 24 hours, the egg begins to disintegrate and is eliminated along with the shedding of the endometrial lining. After the follicle ruptures, it is converted into a structure known as the corpus luteum, which secretes the hormone progesterone. Progesterone creates important changes in the endometrial lining of the uterus, making it suitable for it to receive the fertilized egg. The secretion of progesterone is maintained for several days. But if the fertilization does not occur in this period, the corpus luteum withers, resulting in a fall in the levels of progesterone and estrogen and a shredding of the uterine lining,